Hey guys, this is Isaac from Contender Bicycles, and today we have a guide to all things Maxxis mountain bike tires. Whether that is downhill enduro or cross country, we have everything you need. When you're shopping for mountain bike tires, regardless of the company you're looking at, there's going to be a lot of names of things that won't make quite a whole ton of sense. Things like EXO, DoubleDown, Super Ground, all these random terms, and you don't really know what they mean. So today we're going to go over some of those things in the Maxxis lineup, and so you can know exactly what they mean and how they are going to affect how your bike rides. Starting off with casing. Casing refers to the sidewall of the tire and what's underneath the tread and how it supports your bike. Maxxis has a couple different types of casing referred to as EXO, EXO Plus, DoubleDown, and Downhill. And then as those go, they are going to get more puncture protection the further down that line you go. Starting off with EXO. EXO is just a single layer of protection on either their 60 or 120 TPI tires from Maxxis. And this is going to be usually found on cross country or light trail tires, and sometimes like a middleweight trail tire as well. EXO Plus is pretty much the same thing, except it is 2 layers instead of 1 layer on the sidewall of the bike, and that is going to give more puncture protection, but it's also going to slightly mute the feel of the tire. Moving on from there, from EXO Plus, you're going to have DoubleDown. DoubleDown is going to be the protection casing that most people who are riding enduro bikes or heavy trail bikes or maybe prone to punctures are going to be riding. Maxxis also claims this as their e-bike casing, so if you're riding a heavier e-bike, this may be the casing you want to run there. DoubleDown tires are going to have less puncture protection than a full downhill tire, but they also have increased ride feel. As I mentioned just there, they also have a downhill casing tire. The downhill casing tires from Maxxis are referred to on the side with a DH on the sidewall of the tire, and these are going to be the most puncture protection and the thickest casing you can get on a Maxxis tire. But the downside of running a casing this thick is also going to be ride feel. This can be an upside or downside depending on who you are and your ride style, but it has a much more damped and muted ride feel as compared to a DoubleDown casing versus a downhill casing. So some people who maybe want a more lively feeling and more trail connection might want to run DoubleDown if you're running on a bigger trail bike, or if you want the more muted, more damped feel, you can move over to the downhill casing with also increased puncture protection. As you go up through the casing levels, they are also going to get heavier accordingly. When looking for a tire, the kind of bike you ride and the kind of trails you're trying to ride is also going to affect the tread pattern you're going to choose. Tread pattern is usually going to be from the fastest rolling XC tire, something like a Maxxis Aspen, and then on the other side of the spectrum, when like enduro and downhill bikes, it's going to be something like the Maxxis Assegai. When looking at tread patterns, you're not 100% sure what the tire is made for. A good thing to look for is going to be the size of the lug and how far apart spaced they are. The closer together the knobs are, the more traditionally they are going to be towards the faster end of the spectrum, like cross country or light duty trail tires, and the more spaced apart they are, the more they're going to be towards the enduro side of things. Knobs that are more squared off typically also have better braking performance, so that's going to be more towards the descent-oriented things, but they also have increased rolling resistance as its trade-off. Knobs that also typically have more room in between them and more of a spike shape typically are better about clearing wet debris, so if you ride in an area with lots of mud and lots of loam, you can go that direction. And then tires that are really close, tightly packed together do great in hard pack and fast terrain, but they can tend to clog when you ride in the wet. When it comes to tire width, this is a much easier one. Almost everybody should be running 2.4 and erring on the side of wider. Every single tire I have here, with the exception of an Assegai, is a 2.4, and 2.4 front and rear is a great tire combination. The exceptions to this rule are going to be on the far ends of the spectrum, like if you're running enduro, e-bikes, and downhill bikes. A lot of people sometimes will start running like a 2.5 up front, and e-bikes might even start running a 2.5 in the rear or 2.6 in the rear with a 2.6 on the front as well. But for the vast majority of people, 2.4 is the way to go with a 2.5 on the front, the big travel side of things. And the other side of this equation is going to be in full cross country. While 2.4 is the fastest combination, you should be running wider on most of your XC bikes as long as they can clear it. You might also want to consider going narrow if you're riding in a muddy race. A wide tire doesn't cut through mud quite as well if you're riding in a muddy race. So like the Maxxis Severe is made like a 2.25 instead of a 2.4. So if conditions are really wet, you might want to consider going narrower. But overall, 2.4 seems to be the superior width that most people are running. When it comes to some of our favorite compounds and casings and tire combinations, for the XC side of things, if you're a racer, the Maxxis Aspen is my go-to XC race tire. Super fast rolling, really low profile knobs, and great on hard pack and fast rolling terrain. Now, if you are like me and you also sometimes like riding an XC bike with a tire that is wider and has a little bit more meat on it, which is super common, something like the Maxxis Recon is a great idea for that. Maxxis Recons are also awesome on a light trail bike One of our favorite light trail bike combinations is also using something like a Recon in the rear with the dissector in the front, and that's great for a lot of dry packed and hotter areas. Now, if you're running that same kind of bike, but maybe in a wetter area where you need to worry about loam, mud, things like that, I would try out the Maxxis Forecaster. That's a great tire for light trail bikes that does a little bit better, clearing mud and loam. Now, when you're looking at trail bikes for more the medium travel range, another favorite tire combination is going to be using the dissector in the rear with the Minion DHR on the front. This is a tire combo that is going to corner well, but it still rolls pretty fast, especially for a trail bike. So if you like a faster trail bike, that is going to be a good way to go there. On the bigger side of trail bikes, when you're looking more at like all mountain bikes starting to get into enduro, you're going to be looking at things like the Maxxis Assegai on the front with a dissector in the rear if it's going to be a hotter, drier climate. And then if it gets a little bit more into mixed conditions or you want a little bit more grip of the rear, swap out that dissector in the rear, put in Minion DHR2, rolls a little bit slower, but also has better braking traction. If you are in wetter climates, some other tires you might want to consider on the bigger bike travel things might be a High Roller 2 or Maxxis Shorty if you were going all the way to full mud. On the same side of things, if you're riding XC and worry about mud and loam, you might want to check out the Maxxis Severe. That is their dedicated XC race mud spike tire. If you have any more questions about tires you may want to be running for the Maxxis lineup or trying to source some tires yourself, feel free to visit us in store in Salt Lake City or Park City, or shoot us an email, info@contenderbicycles.com. Thanks for watching.